My name is Matthias Töwe. I'm working at ETH Library, the central library of ETH Zurich in Switzerland. I'm the head of a group which is called Research Data Management and Digital Curation. And we are providing mainly advice and training to researchers on research data management. For example, when they are writing a data management plan for a project proposal. And at the same time, my team are running the ETH Data Archive, which is the long-term preservation system for ETH Zurich. Subject-wise, it's given by what is done at ETH Zurich in terms of research. We are in natural sciences and engineering school, mainly with everything from architecture, machine engineering, but also social sciences and some economics. So it could be a lot of these, but we know that especially in the natural sciences, people prefer subject-specific repositories which are run internationally. And then we have a more, say, subsidiary role. So we only are involved where these repositories don't exist on the international level. And the kind of data we see is usually the ones which are related to the publications themselves. So we don't see all the raw data, which is often just stored under the control of researchers somewhere on the IT infrastructure. It's more data behind publications. And we have data from almost all departments now, I think, apart from mathematics. But we observe that environmental scientists seem to be particularly aware of the issues around data management because they have more of the sustainability mindset, I'd say, so something like that. We started work in the current group in 2011. The name was not the same, but it was, at least I was already working in it then. We started really small with not even 2 persons involved. And the focus at the beginning was very clearly and quite narrow on digital preservation. But we learned continuously from there that this is actually too late. A lot has to happen before that, before you actually get something you can do digital preservation on. So that's why the data management and the curation part evolved from that. Central to our services from the library perspective as a whole are the services on consulting and training, actually, because for us they are important just to get in touch with researchers and also to make them aware of what we can offer. These services by my group are offered for research data management and data management planning mainly. We do some regular trainings in different formats. So sometimes it's half-day workshops, sometimes it's much shorter if that's asked for. And we offer them also as more tailored workshops when we know who will come, that there are research groups who will attend with all the members. Then we try to adapt more to their subject and the questions which are more relevant for them. Then not from my group, but from another team in the library, we run the research collection at ETH, which is a threefold repository, because it's, on the one hand, it's the comprehensive university bibliography, then it's the open access repository, and it's also the research data repository for ETH, which I think is still quite an achievement, also from the customer's point of view, who only have to deal with this one system to do all the tasks. And closely related to this service is the consulting and training on open access issues and funders policies. And although that's more about publications, mostly the funders policy overlap with open research data requirements. So we cannot really strictly separate these issues. So we more consider it as a continuum. And when we are doing trainings, we also very often do this together with the colleagues from the other groups. And in the background, but that's something which a lot of our customers are not even aware of, we also do the preservation of the content in the research collection in the data archive. The people count, I think, for everyone who's doing something ranging from open access support to data management, I'd say it's about a dozen people by now. Obviously not all in their full time, but just by the heads. And they are in the library distributed on 2 or 3 different groups. One is the e-publishing team, one is our team on research data management and digital curation. And probably it would be fair also to count some people from the libraries, IT. And for certain more specific questions or more technical questions, we also like to involve the scientific IT services of the central IT of ETH Zurich. So they are not part of the library, but we think it's essential to have them on board for a lot of issues. And recently they have also added a person who's dedicated to dealing with issues of confidential data, which is very tricky from our point of view. And we are very glad that there is someone taking care of that. So there is not one unit who does all the work, but it's more of a continuum over different units. I've thought about that a bit. I think the interesting and also sometimes a bit frightening part is that you never quite know what comes up, what are the next questions. But the really good thing about it is that you learn so much about how scientists actually work today and well, what they are doing all the time. So there's so many different approaches in science that it's really just fascinating. As I said, I still find it challenging to really jump from what you did in the 1 minute to the things you do in the next minute, because you get a new question which you didn't expect because it didn't come up so far. This is really challenging, and there are also some topics which I find not so easy to deal with. That is, for one thing, the confidentiality issues. And I've learned from my colleagues that part of it is due to the fact that there are that there are not always sufficient regulations, or if there are, they are not, at least from my perspective as a layman, they are not without contradictions between them. And then I really find it difficult to just to understand what they actually intended. I think after some years of experience now with also with different understandings of what data curation is or could be, I think it takes some people or some profile of people to bridge the gap between what researchers do in their everyday work and what they need to do with a focus on their defined projects, and bridge the gap towards the expectations to the long-term availability of data, or even opening up the chance to reuse such data in the future. So the whole complex of bridging the gap from data in the lab to fair data outside of it. And I really think researchers could do all this if they wanted to and if they had the time to, but I don't think it's a very good idea to make them do that, because they should focus on their research, and I think it's a good idea to have other people dealing with everything which comes afterwards. We need researchers' input, obviously, so they know where the data comes from and what the context is, but they shouldn't have to deal with all the practical issues afterwards. That can be tricky, because a lot really depends on what's going on in the institution. So maybe the first advice would be to really find out what is going on outside of the library, who's doing what. We have found out that it's also really challenging for new researchers to orient themselves and to find out who is responsible for what. And then I'd say start small. Start with something where you get an idea, maybe just from small talk with researchers, where you get an idea that there might be a need, and then go step by step from there, get to know more of your customers, understand what they are doing, and from there find new ways of what may be possible related to what you already offer in the library, what people actually need, step by step. And so you're still knowing what you do, not to aim at too much at one time.